Coming up on Valley View News, people across Los Angeles celebrate Transgender Awareness Week. Plus, California farm workers fight for better pay and treatment at work. And Kyle Rittenhouse is found innocent, sparking outrage nationwide.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Mary Peronian.
And I'm Elizabeth Medina in the Digital Media Center.
Kyle Rittenhouse's acquittal has sparked protests across the country. The 18-year-old was found not guilty on all charges in connection to a shooting in Kenosha last year. His accusations included killing 2 men with an assault rifle at a Black Lives Matter protest. Rittenhouse's defense team claimed his actions were motivated by self-defense. Since the verdict, large-scale demonstrations have risen in Chicago, New York City, and Portland, Oregon. CSUN students also responded to the trial's aftermath.
It's really disheartening to know that somebody can take advantage of the legislative process or the judicial process to basically commit acts of violence like that.
Because it's not right, like the 17-year-old boy that got away with what he did. People shouldn't be quiet about it.
Protesters in Kenosha traced the route Rittenhouse took the night of the shooting. Several marched to petition racial justice and to end vigilantism. Commenting on the verdict, President Biden said he stood by the jury's decision and stated that the country's jury system works.
5 people were killed and more than 48 injured after an SUV struck a crowd at a Christmas parade in Wisconsin. Authorities said the figures may climb as the cases evolve.
Of this tragic event, and making sure that the next of kin is conducted. And then we're working with the families. That is our priority in this tragic incident.
Footage of the incident in Waukesha captured a red vehicle speeding into a band as spectators watched. According to Police Chief Daniel Thompson, the SUV charged through barricades before slamming into attendees. Thompson also confirmed that an officer shot at the moving vehicle to stop it from advancing. A person of interest was taken into custody and questioned overnight. Authorities are investigating the possibility that the driver was fleeing an altercation involving a knife fight.
Closing arguments in the Ahmaud Arbery death trial began in Georgia. Gregory McMichael, his son Travis McMichael, and their neighbor William Bryan are facing murder charges. Defense attorney Kevin Goff's request for a mistrial was denied last week. Goff's controversial comments, along with his quest to ban black pastors from the courtroom, have gained criticism.
For him to turn around the peaceful gathering of black pastors who came to support Ahmaud Arbery and call that a lynching is really a slap in the face. And at this point, Mr. Goff has really been targeting the parents in a way I've never seen before.
The 3 defendants were indicted on 9 counts, including malice murder and false imprisonment. Bryan and the McMichaels are also facing federal hate crime charges in the separate case. A trial for the hate crimes is scheduled for February 2022.
Vice President Kamala Harris became the first woman to hold the power of presidency. President Biden temporarily transferred the role before undergoing a routine colonoscopy. She held the position for 85 minutes during the procedure. Harris also broke barriers in January by becoming the first Black and South Asian woman vice president. After her historic shift, Harris traveled to promote the new bipartisan infrastructure deal.
Transgender Awareness Week is recognized nationally in November. CSUN's Pride Center participated by curating a series of events for students. Valley View's Alexia Mersola has the details.
CSUN's Pride Center held Trans Empowerment Week last week as part of National Trans Awareness Week, which helps raise the visibility of transgender people and the issues they face. HITOMI, the Pride Center's interim supervisor, helped organize CSUN's event.
When we were coming up with this event for the CSUN Pride Center, though, we felt that trans awareness wasn't enough. We wanted to create an event that really served our trans students and made them feel centered, empowered.
There were events all week, but the most anticipated activity was the Transcendence Art Show. It featured work from the trans community. Whitney Workman is the acting coordinator for CSUN's Pride Center.
The art show came about from our team wanting to specifically show the art of trans artists and celebrate their life and work.
Although the week is recognized nationally, Jay says it was renamed to focus on the students at CSUN.
We renamed ours Trans Empowerment Week to really center those trans experiences and give them and provide resources that they can use.
Pride Center says Trans Empowerment Week and events like it are put in place to bring the school together and spread awareness about transgender people, not only on campus, but around the world. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Alexia Merzola.
Warrants were issued for the man who fled an Atlanta airport after his firearm discharged at a security checkpoint. Deputy Chief of Airport Operations Michael Winfrey gave a report of the injuries associated with the event.
Atlanta Fire assisted with the evacuation today during the incident. There were a report of 3 injuries, but none were associated with the self-evacuation. We provided service to those in need and helped to return the airport back to normal business continuity.
Authorities identified the man as 42-year-old Kenny Wells. In a statement, TSA said an X-ray machine identified a prohibited item in Wells' bag. The weapon went off after Wells lunged for the luggage as it was being searched. Wells then reportedly ran off through the airport's front doors with the gun in hand. Although no one was shot, the gunfire caused widespread panic. Warrants were issued for Wells on charges that include possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and reckless conduct.
Donald Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen was released from his 3-year prison sentence on Monday. The attorney was convicted on 9 counts in 2018, including tax fraud, lying to Congress, and financial violations. He paid off 2 women who threatened to go public concerning past affairs with Trump. Cohen spent part of his sentence at his New York apartment and counted down his release on Twitter. The disbarred lawyer says he will continue to look into documents and ongoing investigations regarding the 2016 election.
Oklahoma inmate Julius Jones was granted clemency hours before his arranged execution. The 41-year-old was on death row for almost 2 decades for the 1999 murder of businessperson Paul Howell. Governor Kevin Stitt said he reduced Jones's sentence to life in prison after a prayerful consideration. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki reacted to the new conviction and discussed President Biden's worries.
He has grave concerns about whether capital punishment as currently implemented is consistent with the values that are fundamental to our sense of justice and fairness. And certainly as looking at a case like this, you reflect.
Activists allege that new evidence suggests Jones is not guilty of murder. Protests calling attention to his innocence were staged nationwide as his execution date loomed. Although Jones's sentence was lessened, he will not have the opportunity for parole. In a statement, his mother, Madeline Davis Jones, said his life behind bars is an injustice and she will continue to fight for his freedom.
Agriculture workers continue to be statistically more at risk for contracting COVID-19. With no benefits, these essential workers want to be recognized for their contributions. Valley View's Catherine Hernandez has the story.
Many businesses had to shut down during the pandemic, but the agriculture industry continued with its mostly undocumented workforce. Those workers are considered essential workers. Nevertheless, they don't qualify for most assistance.
They don't have access to health insurance or any benefits, and they continue to work because they have to feed their families.
California has more than 800,000 farm workers. They're more likely to get COVID-19 than people in other industries. They work long hours in close proximity to many people. Farm workers say they may be called essential, but they aren't treated like they are.
I thank God that I haven't gotten COVID because we work so much and put our health on the line. The government doesn't realize that. We don't receive the help we deserve.
Many undocumented farm workers say they want to be treated with respect and dignity. There needs to be more awareness about their rights and their citizenship. Magdaleno says they make sacrifices that should be recognized.
They have 10 to 15 years they haven't seen their family. It's not possible. They suffer from every aspect of their life.
Many laborers say they hope that one day their essential work will be recognized and they'll be welcomed to the U.S. legally. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Catherine Hernandez.
A record-breaking $15 million will be paid to family of Elijah McClain. The sum will settle a civil rights lawsuit filed against the city of Aurora after McClain died in a 2019 confrontation with police. It may turn out to be the largest sum of money ever settled in Colorado and amongst the heftiest in the country. The victim's family initially carried out the federal lawsuit in 2020 on charges of violating McClain's civil rights.
Biden, the Canadian Prime Minister, and the Mexican President met at the White House for their first North American Leaders Summit since 2016. This continued during Donald Trump's presidency. The 2021 Three Amigos Conference sought to reestablish political relations.
So today, it's about what we can do in partnership and mutual respect to strengthen our region and prove democracies can deliver in the second quarter of the 21st century.
Biden commended Justin Trudeau for maintaining an easy relationship with the U.S. He also highlighted the mutual respect that exists between the U.S. and Mexico. Climate change, COVID-19, and immigration were also major talking points. Although Biden aimed to build connections, Canada and Mexico voiced concerns over proposed tax credits on electric vehicles. The three world leaders are scheduled to set goals when they meet in Mexico next year.
Pfizer is asking the FDA to authorize their new experimental COVID-19 treatment pill, Paxlovid. If regulators approve, the U.S. government will pay Pfizer almost $5.3 billion for 10 million treatment courses. Paxlovid is intended to decrease the chances of being hospitalized and dying of the virus by almost 90% of those mildly to moderately infected who were at higher risk. Pfizer also shared that they have signed a deal with a UN-backed group that will allow other companies to make a COVID-19 pill too. This move would help the treatment become more accessible to more than half of the world's population.
More to come on Valley View News. The FCC approves a national suicide prevention texting hotline, and members of the CSUN community call attention to the importance of highlighting cases of missing people of color. We'll be right back.
Red shirt, blue shirt, yellow shirt, oops. Yellow pants, red pants, green pants, oops.
Welcome back. Margot Rowe has updates on international news in Studio B. Margot?
Elizabeth, the United Nations is pressuring China to reveal the location of tennis star Peng Shuai. A steady stream of photos and videos have surfaced on Twitter showing a smiling Peng Shuai in Beijing. However, all posts were made by people working for Chinese government-controlled media, and Twitter happens to be blocked in China. Peng Shuai hadn't been seen in public eye since accusing former Vice Premier Zhang Caoli of pressuring her into sex at his home. The head of the Women's Tennis Association, Steve Simon, says he was willing to lose hundreds or millions of dollars in business in China if Peng is not released. Migration has become more common for Central Americans. U.S. officials say this is due in part of strong storms, food insecurities, and corruption. About 600 migrants were found traveling in 2 trailers through the state of Veracruz in Mexico. A migration agency says 145 women and 445 men were found in closed boxcars heading towards the U.S. border. 400 of the migrants began their journeys from neighboring nations like Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. All of the migrants will be flown back to their home countries. Sex offenders in Pakistan who face several accusations of rape may face chemical castration. Chemical castration uses drugs to decrease sexual appetite or libido. Lawmakers passed a new anti-rape bill that's intended to accelerate convictions and impose stricter sentences. The government will create special courts to speed up rape trials and to make sure sexual abuse cases are decided rapidly. Those guilty of gang rape will be sentenced to life in prison or death. The bill was spurred after public outcries over recent increases of rapes against women and children. Authorities say heavy rains across southern India and Sri Lanka killed more than 40 people. Weather forecasters expected the downpours to ease in the next few days. Counterparts in neighboring Sri Lanka said rain there is expected to ease this week. The rains there killed 25 people. Over 20 people in India also died from flooding this week. Officials say most victims drowned. Multiple landslides also led to the deaths of 5 people. Authorities in both nations say thousands of people in low-lying areas moved to safer spaces. That's all for international news. I'm Margot Rowe in Studio B. Back to you, Mary.
Missing people of color stories have sparked headlines after missing persons case of Gabby Petito. One journalism student says the lack of diversity in the media is the problem. Valley View's Kimi Chacon has more.
CSUN students from the Black, African American, and other communities are speaking up about the lack of news coverage when a person of color is reported missing.
And then at the next screen, I think it's going to say...
The Sundial's MICHAELLA HUCK says diversity in newsrooms is essential to storytelling. She says reporters should be knowledgeable of these issues that are important to a community.
How can you report on issues involving a certain community if you have never talked to or spoken to that community? I think engagement in reporting is very important.
Educator Cheyenne Winston says a lack of proper media representation is frustrating the Latino, Black, and African American communities.
They never cared about our bodies. And I think that that's very important to say, because when you think about representation in the media, you think about who owns the media.
Like they wouldn't have traditionally thought of that.
CSUN communications professor Joel Mule says many local news stories tend to focus on trends or feel-good news instead of reporting on problems embedded in communities.
Sometimes they're human interest stories as opposed to stories about systemic behavior.
HUCK says she and other CSUN journalists are paving the way for diversifying newsrooms, and that should improve the media news coverage of people of color communities. Reporting for Valley View News in Northridge, I'm Kimi Chacon.
The United States Army will bar soldiers who refuse COVID-19 vaccination. All active duty members must be vaccinated by December 25th. Soldiers are allowed to receive the exemption if it pertains to reenlistment, promotions, and other favorable actions. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says 98% of active military troops are vaccinated. He says he's working to get that number to 100%.
You see how close people have to closely together. People have to work, and they're out at sea in some cases for quite a long time. This is important to us, and so we're going to continue to work on this.
Unvaccinated troops won't receive tuition assistance for attending military or civilian schools if they refuse to get the vaccine.
Starting next year, all phone calls and texts sent to the number 988 will be routed to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The Federal Communications Commission made the unanimous vote last week. The decision is supposed to expand access to the hotline. The new text features intends to be more inclusive to those with disabilities, people who need the conversation to be confidential, or anyone who simply prefers to text over talk. Phone carriers are in the process of implementing the number nationwide. 988 is expected to be available for everyone by July 16, 2022.
CVS is heading in the wrong direction. With traditional pharmacies on the decline, the drugstore chain plans to close out 1 in 10 of its locations. But this actually poses some good news for one CVS competitor, and it's not Walgreens or Rite Aid. That company is Dollar General. They've rapidly expanded in the United States over the past decade by undercutting chain drugstores and snatching away some of their shoppers. Dollar Tree executives say they're ready to take over the pharmacy industry. A report by the National Association of Chain Drug Stores says Dollar Tree prices are around 40% less than its competitors.
Friday, 2.24 million airline passengers were screened by the U.S. Transportation Security Administration. This is the highest number of passengers since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The TSA says the milestone was the highest checkpoint volume since March 2020. Airlines offer staff holiday incentives after operational meltdowns. The TSA says it had unexpected to screen about 20 million air passengers during the Thanksgiving period. Major U.S. airlines had predicted an uptick in air travel over the last few days. Last week, the Biden administration lifted travel restrictions for fully vaccinated air travels from 33 countries.
With Thanksgiving coming up, what are you most thankful for? Valley View's Jeannie Rodriguez spoke with one SoCal native who says she is the most thankful woman of all.
All right. On August 18th, 1992, Felicia DeFara was driving to Indiana University. She received a full-ride scholarship to play tennis there. At one point, she heard what she thought was a gunshot. What happened after changed her life forever.
I didn't think I was going to make it. And the doctors told my parents they weren't really sure if I was going to be alive.
As she was driving, her tire popped. It wasn't as she thought, a gunshot. She lost control and veered off the road and off a cliff, ramming into an oak tree. She says she was stuck there for hours.
I was angry, and I told myself I'd never play tennis again.
DeFara says instead of feeling sorry for herself, she didn't give up. She made changes to make her dreams come true. She now coaches tennis and also specializes in Malibu real estate relocations.
I love helping buyers find their second home, usually beach condos. I sell a lot here, do a lot of leases, relocating to commercial property, to vacant land.
DeFara says since her 1992 accident, she's grown to appreciate life. The way she'll spend her holiday will be a reflection of that. With Thanksgiving approaching, DeFara said she hopes people are able to reflect on what's really important. She's thankful for life and family. Reporting from Malibu, California, Jeannie Rodriguez, Valley View News.
When we come back, an NFL star has been arrested after a brutal attack on his girlfriend was caught on camera. And one iconic building in downtown is getting a new name change. Stay with us.
In January, Disney Cruise Lines will require all passengers ages 5 and up to be vaccinated for COVID-19. For children under 5, their parents must provide proof of a negative test within 3 days before departure. Children 5 to 11 should complete tests to board before January 13th. The cruise line industry is trying to recover from the pandemic. It says it wants to make the cruise experience safe for all passengers.
The famous Staples Center, home of the NBA Lakers and Clippers, will soon be known as the Crypto.com Arena. Crypto.com is reportedly paying $700 million over 20 years for naming rights to the arena. Crypto.com is a cryptocurrency platform and exchange founded in 2016. Although it's headquartered in Singapore, the company is leaving its mark all over the global sports world through naming rights. The arena has been known at the Staples Center for 22 years. The new name takes place on Christmas Day.
A brawl during the Lakers Detroit Pistons game led to several ejections. It started after LeBron James elbowed Isaiah Stewart during a free throw. James went to apologize. Still, Stewart pursued James with fury. As several players stormed the court, the PA announcers told spectators to remain seated. Stewart has been suspended for 2 games and LeBron has been suspended for 1. Stewart needed 5 stitches above his right eye.
An LA artist is working on a project to find a solution for textile waste. Our reporter Cynthia Puga explains.
Fast fashion is one of the biggest contributors to the planet's pollution. An LA textile crafter says she's been dedicated to finding a solution and already has a project in the works.
Trying to introduce mycelium, which is mushroom, basically, to the clothing, and so it's been found that some kind of mushrooms eat plastic.
El Paso explains how the white mycelium forms from the oyster mushrooms and begins to digest clothes made from nylon, polyester, and synthetic fibers, all of which are considered forms of plastic. Oyster mushrooms are edible. They can be found at grocery stores. CSUN professor and fungi expert David Bermudez says this mushroom is the best type to use for this kind of experiment.
Because the oyster mushroom is in a special category of mushrooms that can degrade things that a lot of other fungi can't.
El Paso says she wants to continue working on projects to find a solution to textile waste. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Cynthia Puga.
Former NFL player Zach Stacy was arrested Thursday for attacking his ex-girlfriend. Stacy was charged with battery and criminal mischief by Oakland Florida police. Surveillance cameras captured the incident. His ex-girlfriend, Kristen Evans, put the footage on Facebook. It allegedly shows Stacy punching Evans in the head and throwing her against a television while their infant son watched. He then fled the scene. Florida police later obtained a warrant for his arrest. Stacy was a running back for the Rams in 2013.
In an astonishing back-and-forth fourth quarter, the Chargers managed to hold off the Steelers Sunday night. As the Steelers mounted their comeback, it wasn't enough to stop Austin Eckler and his 4-touchdown performance.
I'll tell you, man, you look, Austin Eckler, again, doesn't get a lot of headlines. What a player.
You don't need any commentary on this one. Watch these moves.
Tied late, Justin Herbert connected with Mike Williams on a game-winning touchdown pass. This was the Chargers' 6th win.
Miramax filed a lawsuit against film director Quentin Tarantino. The company says Tarantino planned to sell non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, of his iconic 1994 film Pulp Fiction. Tarantino's attorney said his contract gives him the right to sell his handwritten script. Miramax says that a print publication and NFTs aren't the same. The suit also claims that Tarantino signed away rights to all media for Pulp Fiction when it went into development in 1993.
Hip-hop artist Adolph Thornton Jr., also known as Young Dolph, was killed inside of his favorite bakery Wednesday. He was known for his charitable work around Memphis, Tennessee. Police are still looking for suspects.
The Memphis Police Department, along with our federal partners, will look at every investigation and every piece of evidence to try to solve this particular case.
He was scheduled to donate to the annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway Friday morning. Friends and associates gathered outside of St. James Missionary Baptist Church to help keep his promise.
The CSUN Matadors played their home opener with a nail-biter that went down to the wire. Our reporter Malik Patterson has the story.
The Matadors faced off against Eastern Washington in their home opener. For the senior-led team, with the new coaching staff, finding their identity is key.
Well, we had guys like Miles James contributing. We had, Oni in there finishing, and it's just we're going to get the feel of it, as these games go on, and everybody will start to contribute more and more, different person every game.
Coach Trent Johnson went to his bench early and often as the Matadors struggled offensively. The Matadors were down late in overtime. Foul trouble made it hard to mount a comeback.
Stay focused and stay positive. It's early in the year, so we're just trying to, get everything figured out and stuff like that. So that's why we got the rotations going, but I think we did pretty well from it.
League play hasn't yet begun, but if the Matadors want to be competitive, they must find their rhythm and quick.
Positive. I thought obviously Hardy played well offensively, but again, his decision-making at times, I thought Miles James gave us a lift.
With a long season ahead, the Matadors will take this bump and keep pushing and hopefully win league. And they say that they're really focused and senior heavy, so we'll see what happens. Reporting from Valley View News, I am Malik Patterson.
J.K. Rowling won't be reuniting with the rest of the Harry Potter cast and crew for the film's 20th anniversary. The HBO Max special Harry Potter 20th Anniversary Return to Hogwarts airs on New Year's Day. Although Rowling won't be in attendance, she'll be featured in the archival footage. A source close to the production wouldn't comment on her absence.
That's all for us at Valley View News. I'm Elizabeth Medina.
And I'm Mary Pronian. For stories any time of day, go to our website, csunvalleyview.edu. Thanks for watching.